Kevin Wright's Mission Report, July 25th, 1982. First is a musical selection by Kevin's uncle, Brian Modishaw. Next is a mission report by Kevin Wright.
Well, thanks very much for the song. I really enjoyed it. First of all, the name of the mission is the Japan Fukuoka mission. When I first read my call, I looked at it. Where's this Fukuoka place? What is this? So, that finally figured it out. I just got back from Japan about a week ago, so I still don't know as much English as I should. And I was thinking about what to say in this talk. I wanted to make it a little different from the regular missionary homecomings because I thought maybe you'd get bored with just the same old thing all the time. So I come up with a pretty good idea, but I don't know if you'd like it or not. It kind of kills two birds with one stone. I thought maybe I could give my talk in Japanese and then bear my testimony in English. Sort of opposite what we But there's a lot of differences between America and Japan, a lot of culture differences, things. If you ever went over there, one thing you might notice is the Japanese really like people with big noses. They don't have big noses. They envy it. And so I was really good looking over there. I know quite a few people that would be pretty good looking. But anyway, there's a lot of culture differences between here and Japan. The food is a lot different. There, of course, you've probably heard about the raw fish. It's okay once you get used to it. Takes a while. I brought some stuff home last week. It's called kalpis. It's fermented milk, and you mix it with water. I really like it. My family, I don't know what they thought of it. Their eating habits are different. They eat a lot of noodles, and one of their habits when they eat a bowl of noodles is they pick up the bowl in their hand, and they have the chopsticks, and they slurp it. And they do a real good job of that, and so that takes a while to get used to. We haven't had noodles at my house yet, but if we do, we might get surprised. Another one of the differences is their bathroom, where they take a bath. It's usually their bathtub is about half the length of ours and about a foot deeper. And what you do is you squat down in front of it and pour water over you and soap up and wash off first before you get inside. And then you get inside and soak, which is that's their bath. So another one of their differences is when they go in the house, they take their shoes off. I'm still into that habit right now. It still feels dirty to go inside with my shoes on. So I'm always leaving my shoes outside by the front door. But what they have, they call it a genkan. It's a little place, they don't even consider it part of their house. You walk in the front door, take your shoes off and put it in some shelves or just leave it there on the floor. Then you step up some stairs, a stair into the main part of the house, where there's another sliding door between that and the house. So you never wear your shoes inside the house. Their floors are, how would you explain it? They're like mats. They're made of rice. The rice stalks woven really close together. There's a binding around it and everything, so it won't fall apart. But it's like rice mats that are placed all over the house. And that's one reason they don't wear their shoes inside, because they're afraid they'll get those dirty, and they're really expensive to replace. And another one of the main differences between America and Japan is, of course, the religion. Most Japanese are Buddhists. Most Japanese aren't strong anything. They just more or less go to the local temple on New Year's Eve, New Year's morning, throw their coins at the graven image, whatever it's called, and clap their hands a few times and say a little prayer about once, twice a year, and that's about it. Most people are agnostics, I think. They don't really know what to believe. So most people in Japan really don't know what's true, so most of them are willing to listen to us, to the missionaries when we talk to them. The Okinawan religion is a little different from the rest of Japan. I was in Okinawa for 4 months. It's quite interesting. Where we lived, there was a little shrine nearby. Every once in a while you'd see an older lady. That's mostly the ones that are strongly practicing Buddhism and those religions, is the older people. So every once in a while you'd see an old lady, older person go up to the shrine and put out some oranges on the little step thing and sit there for about 15-20 minutes, clap her hands a few times and say a few words. You never knew what was going on. And then she'd pick up her oranges and walk off, or let the next person come. They were really interesting. They have some really interesting religions down there. A lot of religions, they believe that they're saved just by saying their magic formula or whatever it is. They get in front of what they call a butsudan. It's, maybe you've seen a picture of it or something. It reminds me a lot of the ancient Israelites, when they're always making their graven images, what kind of things they'd make. But what they do is they just get in front of it and kneel down and put their hands together and say a little prayer, I guess, and they believe that they're saved through that. There's some parts of the Japanese religions that resemble ours in some ways. For instance, there's an ancient legend in Buddhism that talks about a white god that visited Japan a long time ago. So, in the Bible and Book of Mormon, it talks about Christ's other sheep. I wonder if Japan was one of those places. That their legend talks about a white god that visited Japan and tells them all about all these good teachings, and they have a lot of good teachings that are from that. I think that most of Buddhism is just teaching to be a good person. Other than the graven images, they have a lot of good teachings. But let's see. Most Japanese people don't really understand what Christian churches are all about. They hear, oh, Christian church, oh, that's weird. Sort of like what we think about Hindu or Buddhism or something when we first hear it. And so, lots of times when we talk to Japanese people, they would get really scared because they'd be hearing about a Christian church. And lots of Japanese churches teach that if you even listen to Christian teachings, that weird things will happen to your house and family and people die, these weird things. But the Japanese people are really humble, so you find a lot of people that are prepared to hear the gospel. When you find someone that is humble and understands, that will listen, lots of people will accept it just like that. There was one person towards the end of my mission that this is just a blessing we got. We'd been working real hard, hadn't had anything, hadn't been finding anybody that really wanted to hear anything. And then one day we got a phone call. It was a Mr. Kawano. And he said, "Is it okay if I come over and listen to your talks?" Oh, yeah, sure, you know. So he comes over the next day and we talked to him. He was just golden, you know. We challenged him for baptism, told him all about everything. He just accepted everything like that. He was just so humble. It was really weird though. He just suddenly appeared after all this work with nothing. It really strengthened my testimony, knowing that God will bless us for what we do, even if it doesn't look like we're accomplishing anything at the time. There was one more time that was like that, where we had what I think is a blessing just after a lot of hard work. There was a man in a city called Kagoshima. One night he had a dream. He dreamed that his wife's mother appeared to him, and she told him that there was going to be a couple of foreigners visit his house, and that he should be nice to them. And so the next day, a couple of foreigners, missionaries, visited his house, and he let them in. I wasn't there at the time, but he let them in, and they told him a little bit about the church. He didn't really seem real excited about it, but it was someone that they could go back to. So when they went back, he told them about that dream that he had, and they were, of course, really excited for him. Then that was about the time that I transferred in, and I met him. And so we taught him all the lessons. About 2-3 weeks we taught him, and he was just doing really good. We taught him about tithing, and his wife his wife never really did like the church that much. So but when she heard about tithing, that he'd be paying money to the church, no way, don't. She wouldn't let him do anything because she more or less controlled the money situation in the house. He just earned it and gave it to her, and she took care of the money and gave him enough to keep himself busy for the week. So we really worked with him a lot. The members there really fellowshipped her a lot. They kept bringing, just about every week she had a visit from one of the members. Finally, we sent a letter to the mission president asking him what we should do. And he sent a letter back saying, well, you can go ahead and baptize him and just let him pay tithing on what he gets from his wife. So we told him that, and he was really happy. He's still kind of scared, but he was baptized the next day, and he was paying his tithing on that for a long time. The members kept fellowshipping his wife, and finally about 3 months ago, his wife was baptized also, I was really happy about that. This experience came only after a lot of trials. Just before I transferred there, I'd come down with a case of something which is called in Japanese fushin, which is more or less a case of 3-day measles, something like that. It was pretty bad. I was really tired all the time. I couldn't even stay awake. And I had a couple of glands were all swollen up. Skin was red and couldn't talk. I was really in bad shape. Then finally got over that, and I transferred. I didn't really want to leave my old place, but I transferred anyway. It was in the middle of the summer, so I went down to the south end of the island where it was pretty hot, and it was the rainy season, which, if anybody's ever been to Japan, is not very fun. You're just always sweaty. And to top that off, we were living right next to a volcano, an active volcano which put out a lot of ash. Just 2 or 3 times a day it'd put out a big blast of ash. So not only were we wet from the sweat, but we were covered with ash. So we looked like, we couldn't even keep our shirts clean. We were all muddy all the time. So yeah, and then finally got down to a new place, and the first night I was there we had vandals. We come out of the front door first morning, and our bikes were all painted green and silver, and there was words all over the house, and it was real interesting. So, that brother Utsunomiya, that person that got baptized, came only after a lot of trials. There was just about any success I had came after a lot of trials and test of faith. When you're in Japan, you naturally have to learn a new language and get used to a new culture, so you naturally make a lot of mistakes. There's a lot of words in Japanese that you can mix up. For instance, there's the word for chopsticks, and the word for bridge sound almost the same. The chopsticks is pronounced hashi, and the bridge is pronounced hashi. And so you got to be careful when you're eating, not to ask someone to pass you a bridge. Lots of problems. I had a companion once. He hadn't been out too long, and we were doing house to house one night. We come up to a house, and it was his turn to knock on the door, so he knocks, He decided he wanted to do an approach on family home evening, which in Japanese is called kate no yubi. No, kate no yube. And he got mixed up, and instead of saying yube, he said yubi, which is finger. So he was trying to introduce him to the family finger. So he had a little problem there. The people kind of looked at him. One thing that I really don't want to talk about, but it was a mistake that I made. We were out doing house to house one day, and like I was telling you before, you always leave your shoes in the little area in front of the door. And so we turned all the lights out in the apartment, and we're just going out the door. Got down, it was really dark. I got down my shoes and we went out, and we went, we were knocking on doors, Finally got to a place, they let us in, we got in, talked to them for a while, and then come back out to the door. I looked down and my shoes were down there, but one of them was brown and one of them was black. So, and the family was sitting there looking at him, their daughter was going, I was turning red, and my companion was just laughing, he was cracking up, having a real good time. So, we got through that. I really learned a lot on my mission. One of the main things I learned about was what's written in Moroni about faith, hope, and charity, how important they are. You can't really have one without the other. You can't really have charity without hope and faith. Once you have faith that you can do something, you have to have hope that you can do it. Then if you don't have charity, love for your fellow man, love for everybody, you really don't accomplish much. I know on my mission, until I really loved my companion and loved the people and loved just everybody in general, what I was doing didn't really seem to make any sense. Once I started loving all these people, suddenly what I was doing made sense. I knew what I was doing. Another thing I learned on my mission is how to have success. Not just doing missionary work, but probably in your job or family life or anything. A formula for success. The first thing you got to do is just want to do. You got to have desire. You got to have vision. You got to believe that you can do it. That faith again. Just have faith that you can do whatever it is you want to do. The next thing is to make a plan. Whether it's for your job, you got to make a plan so that you can constantly keep growing. For missionary work, you got to make a plan. I know the only time I really had any success was when at the beginning of the week we plan out the whole week, so we didn't have any spare time to sit around and say, well, what should we do now? So you just had to have a plan where you always knew what you were going to do. And then the third step is just to do it. You can make all the plans in the world, but unless you do it, it's not going to do any good. That's the formula for success that I learned. Another thing I learned about was the power of the priesthood. And I was in the MTC. That was a real hard time, but we had an elder there that he had kind of a pain in his side. He thought it was just, he just had a cold or something. And it got pretty bad. We were in class one day, and our teacher, he said, well, I better give you a blessing or something. So we gave him a blessing, and in the blessing, the teacher told him that he'd be okay as long as he got to the hospital real quick. So we all kind of wondered, wow, what kind of thing is this. So he decided to go to the hospital. He went there, and it was his appendix. It was in pretty bad shape, so they got him all fixed up. So that's the power of the priesthood. The priesthood blessings are really, it's really a great privilege that we have to be able to partake of priesthood blessings like that. Well, come to the part of my talk that I've really been looking forward to, where I'm talking Japanese. I always used to sit in the back there, and when the return missionaries would come home, they'd get up here and talk in their language, and I'd sit back and go, wow. So now it's finally my turn. I can get up here and talk, and all you people can go, wow. Although it's not really that much. Okay. 私はここで日本語で証しする機会がありますので本当に感謝しています。日本で伝道する機会があったので感謝しています。私はまだ15分ありますので15分で日本語で話すことができないので早く終わると思います。日本は本当に素晴らしい国です。そこの人が本当に謙遜の人です。日本人はすごく愛しています。この教会が本当に神様の教会であると感謝したいと思います。そしてイエス・キリストが私の救い主であると感謝したいと思います。この伝道する機会があったので本当に感謝しています。その伝道する間にたくさんのことを学ぶことができたので感謝しています。このワード部の人の指示を感謝し、皆様に感謝しています。ジョセフ・スミスは神様の預言者であったと感謝したいと思います。そして今のキンボール大官長が神様の啓示を受けている預言者であると感謝します。この歌詞と話をイエス・キリストの皆によって感謝します。Everybody likes a short meeting, so I'll end right here. Say these things in the name of Jesus Christ, amen.
Next was a few words by Kevin's brother, Craig Wright.
Guess I'll let Kathy off the hook and go first. I don't know, Kevin was threatening me that he's going to have me talk, but it's like Crandall took care of it for him. And, well, I'm just glad that Kevin could go on a mission and serve the way he did and bring a lot of people into the church. And we've really been blessed while he's been gone. And I've had a lot of good letters from him. And I get a lot of stamps off him, so I like that. I don't know, he's told me a lot of experiences after he's gotten home, and I'm glad that he can return home, and thankful that I live in this church and that I might have a chance to go on a mission too and reach that age and say things in Jesus Christ's name.
Kevin's sister Kathy spoke next.
I'm thankful that Kevin's home. I'm glad he could go on a mission and teach the gospel. You know, when he was getting ready to go, I thought, oh wow, 2 whole years without being teased and stuff. But after about 2 weeks, I realized that I missed it. And I'm glad he's back and that he could teach the gospel. And, I'm glad that the family could come and listen to him speak and that they're here. And I'd like him to know how much I love and appreciate him. And I'm thankful that I'm in this church and that we have the gospel. And I say things and my son just pressed me in.